Everything begins at a table. There are no shouts, there is no visible tension, there are no signs that something is about to break. It is a supper. Bread, wine, soft conversations, a moment that, from the outside, seems completely normal. But it is not, because while everyone is there sharing, laughing perhaps, talking as on other occasions, Jesus knows exactly what is about to happen. It is not intuition. It is not suspicion. It is certainty. He knows that tonight they are going to betray him. He knows how everything is going to end. And even so, he stays. He does not change the plan, he does not try to avoid it, he does not seek to escape. He remains at the table, present, looking at each of them as he has always done, but with a depth that they still cannot understand. And then, in the midst of that apparently calm environment, he says something that changes everything. "One of you will deliver me." He does not raise his voice. He does not dramatize the phrase. But the impact is immediate. The conversation is cut short. The environment freezes. Glances begin to move from one side to another, searching for answers that nobody has. Because that phrase not only reveals something, it confronts everyone. And almost without realizing it, one by one they begin to ask themselves the same thing: is it I? It is not only doubt. It is fear. It is confusion. Because none of them want to believe that that is possible, but neither can they ignore it. And in the midst of all of them, there is one who does not need to ask himself anything. Judas. He already made the decision. This did not begin at that table. It was not something that arose in the moment. It had already happened before, in silence, far from the others. He had already gone to the leaders, he had already made the agreement, he had already accepted the price. 30 coins. That was the value. Not because Jesus was worth that, but because that was what they were willing to pay. And the most impactful thing of all is that Jesus knows it. He knows exactly who he is. He knows what he did. He knows what he is going to do in a few hours. And even so, he does not expose him in front of everyone. He does not stop him. He does not humiliate him. Instead of that, he does something completely unexpected. He gives him bread. A simple gesture, but profoundly significant. An act of closeness at the same moment in which the betrayal is already underway. And that contrast is what makes this scene so strong. Because while Judas has already decided to deliver him, Jesus continues treating him as someone close. Not because he ignores what is happening, but because he is allowing it. Because this is not an accident. It is a path. And Judas knows it. He knows that there is no longer a way back. He knows that what is coming cannot be stopped. And even so, he gets up. He does not make noise. He does not give explanations. He does not say goodbye. He simply goes out. And when he does, the environment changes again. Not because someone completely understands what is happening, but because something feels different. Because when someone makes a decision like that, even if it is not said out loud, it is perceived. And Judas gets lost in the night. But it is not only darkness outside. It is internal darkness. Because there are decisions that not only affect what you do, they change who you are. And this is one of them. Meanwhile, the supper continues, but it is no longer the same. The words weigh more. The environment is different. There is a tension that cannot be completely explained. Because something began. Something that can no longer be stopped. Jesus continues speaking, continues teaching, continues sharing, but now each word has more weight, more urgency, more meaning. Because he knows that the time is running out. But the disciples still do not understand it. They still believe that there is more time. They still think that this is just another moment. They still do not see what is coming. And that is what makes this scene so human. Because while one has already betrayed, the others do not even know that everything is about to change. But Jesus does. And even so, he does not accelerate. He does not pressure. He does not flee. He gets up from the table and walks toward the next moment. Not like someone who is taken by force. Like someone who goes voluntarily. Because what is coming is not a surprise. It is a decision. And that decision was already made. Because the betrayal is already underway. And the night is just beginning. After the supper, they go out. Not in a hurry, not in chaos. They walk as they have done many times before, but this time, everything is different, even if not everyone perceives it yet. The night is quiet, almost too quiet. Jerusalem rests, oblivious to what is about to happen, while they advance toward a known place, the Garden of Gethsemane. It is a site where Jesus usually goes. A place of prayer, of pause, of intimacy with the Father. But tonight is not like the others. There is a weight in the atmosphere. It is not visible, but it is felt. Jesus arrives, stops, looks at his disciples, and there is something in his expression that is not habitual. It is not fear as they would understand it, but neither is it calm like other times. It is a mixture of burden, of depth, of something that is about to overflow. He asks them to stay, to watch, to be attentive. But they do not completely understand the urgency. Because when you do not understand what is coming, it is difficult to stay alert. Jesus pulls away a little more. He does not go far, but far enough to be alone. And there, in that space, something occurs that not everyone sees, but that defines everything that follows. He kneels. And he prays. Not like on other occasions. Not with soft words or teachings for others. This time it is different. It is direct. It is profound. It is real. Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. It is not a prayer of doubt in the human sense of lack of faith. It is an expression of the real weight of what is coming. Because it is one thing to know what is going to happen and another is to face it at that exact moment. Jesus is feeling the impact of what is coming. The pain. The betrayal. The full burden. But he does not stay there. Because after that phrase comes the one that defines everything, but not my will be done, but yours. And at that instant, everything is sealed. Not by obligation. By decision. Jesus is not dragged toward what is coming. He accepts it. He embraces it. He faces it. He gets up and returns to his disciples. But they are asleep. Not from indifference. Not because they do not care. Simply, they do not understand. The body is heavy, the moment does not seem urgent from their perspective, and sleep wins. Jesus wakes them up. Not with uncontrolled anger, but with a mixture of sadness and reality. He asks them again to watch, to be attentive, to not give in. But he pulls away again. And he prays once more. Deeper. More intense. Because the moment is closer. And when he returns, once again they are asleep. And there a very human thing is seen. Jesus completely conscious, facing the most difficult moment, and his disciples unable to stay awake. Two completely different realities, coexisting in the same place. But the time is running out. Because suddenly, the environment changes. Not by what they do. By what is approaching. Steps are heard. Not soft. Firm. Coordinated. And then, light. Torches breaking the darkness. voices, movement, and at the front, Judas. There is no doubt in his face. There is no visible conflict. The decision he made before now manifests itself completely. He approaches Jesus, not with violence, with closeness, and that is what is strongest, because he betrays him in the most intimate way possible, with a kiss. Rabbi, and that gesture, which normally represents respect or affection, at this moment becomes a signal. The signal to arrest him. Jesus looks at him, not surprised, not confused, with total knowledge of what is happening. Do you betray the Son of Man with a kiss? It is not a question to obtain an answer. It is a revelation, because it exposes what is really occurring. And at that instant, everything is unleashed. The soldiers advance. Quick. Direct. They surround him. They take him. And nobody stops them. Because Jesus does not resist. He does not flee. He does not fight. He delivers himself. And that is what makes everything even more impactful. Because it is not a lack of power. It is a decision. Peter cannot stay still. He reacts as always, impulsive, emotional, trying to resolve everything in the moment. He draws his sword. He attacks. He cuts and tries to defend Jesus with the only thing he understands in that moment, force. But Jesus stops him immediately. Because this is not going to be resolved like this. Because if this were a human battle, it would not be happening this way. And then he says something that changes the perspective completely. That he could ask for help. That he is not defenseless. That this does not occur because he cannot avoid it, but because he is allowing it. And that breaks all logic. Because in the middle of the chaos, in the middle of the arrest, in the middle of the betrayal, Jesus continues having control. But he chooses not to use it. And that leaves everyone in shock. Because nobody acts like this. The disciples do not understand. They do not process. They do not know what to do. And little by little, fear begins to dominate. Because now it is real. It is no longer a warning. It is no longer a conversation. Jesus is being arrested. And that means something. It means danger. It means risk. It means that everything can crumble. And then, they begin to pull back. One by one. Not for lack of love. For fear. Because when reality hits hard, not everyone reacts the same. And Jesus is left alone. Surrounded. Bound. Taken. Not as a teacher. Not as a leader. As a prisoner. And while they lead him, the night continues the same for the city. But not for history. Because what began with a supper, now has been converted into an arrest. And this is only going to escalate. Because what follows will not be easier. It will be more intense. More unjust. More definitive. Because the path is already underway. And nobody is going to stop it. From that moment, everything moves fast. There is no longer a pause. There is no longer space to process what just happened in the garden. Jesus is taken directly, surrounded, watched, treated as someone dangerous, even if he is not. They lead him from one place to another, from authority to authority, but what is occurring is not a real trial. It is rather a confirmation of something they already decided before beginning. The religious leaders already have a conclusion. They are not looking for the truth, they are looking to justify a decision. And that changes everything. Because when someone already decided the result, any process that comes after is not justice, it is a formality. They try to build a case. They bring witnesses, but their versions do not coincide. The accusations contradict each other, they fall apart, they do not have enough weight. Everything feels forced, artificial, as if they were trying to fit something that does not end up holding up. But even so, they continue. Because it is not about whether he is guilty. It is about that they want him to be. And in the midst of all that, Jesus is there. Not defending his case, not interrupting, not trying to convince anyone. In silence. And that silence begins to make them more uncomfortable than any argument. Because they are used to the accused speaking, justifying themselves, reacting. But not him. He observes, listens, and remains firm. It is not a silence of weakness. It is a silence of control. Because he does not need to prove anything. Because what is occurring does not depend on what they say there. But the environment becomes increasingly tense. The questions go up in tone, the pressure increases, and at some point, they no longer look for coherence, they look for a declaration. Something they can use. Something that closes the case. And then comes the direct question, the one that changes everything. Are you the Son of God? And for the first time in the whole process, Jesus responds. Not with evasions. Not with fear. With clarity. And that answer is enough. Not because it is a confession of guilt, but because they convert it into that. There they decide they already have what they need. They no longer search for more witnesses. They no longer need more evidence. For them, that is enough to condemn him. And the environment changes completely. Because now they are no longer evaluating. They are reacting. They mock him. They hit him. They treat him with contempt. They push him from one side to another as if he no longer had any value. And all that occurs, while outside, another story is developing at the same time. Peter is there. Not inside the trial, but neither completely far away. He is near, but not too much. Enough to see what happens. Enough to feel the risk. And that puts him in an uncomfortable position. Because he wants to be near, but he also wants to be safe. And that tension is real. He mixes among the people, tries to go unnoticed, but someone recognizes him. Not with absolute certainty, but yes with suspicion. Are you not also one of them? The question is not aggressive. It is not a direct threat. But in that context, it weighs. Because Peter knows what is happening inside. He knows what they did to Jesus. And now, suddenly, the attention moves toward him. And without thinking too much, he responds. I am not. Quick. Almost automatic. As if his instinct were to protect himself before processing. The conversation follows, the environment continues, but it does not take long before someone else looks at him with more attention. This time it is not light doubt. It is more direct. Yes, you were with him. And now the pressure is greater. Because it is no longer just one person. Because it is no longer just an insinuation. And Peter denies again. More firm. More determined. Trying to cut off the conversation before it escalates. But the problem is that when you begin to deny something like that, it does not stop easily. Shortly after, someone else intervenes. And now it is no longer suspicion. It is conviction. Of course you are one of them, your way of speaking gives you away. And in that moment, everything intensifies. Because there is no longer space to exit easily. It is no longer a casual conversation. It is confrontation. And Peter feels that. He feels that the situation is getting out of hand. That he no longer controls the moment. That he is being exposed. And then, He denies again, but this time it is different, stronger, more desperate. He no longer just says that he does not know him. He affirms it with insistence, as if he wanted to erase any connection, as if that could protect him. And in that instant, it is heard. The rooster. A simple sound, but devastating, because it is not only a sound, it is a reminder. The words of Jesus return to his mind all at once. Clear. Exact. Before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. And everything stops. Not outside. Within him. Because in that second, everything fits. Every answer. Every denial. Every moment. And he understands it. Completely. There is no way to soften it. There is no excuse that works. There is no way to reinterpret it. He did it. And in that instant, he looks. And Jesus does too. Not with anger. Not with rejection. With knowledge. And that look is enough. Because it does not need words. Peter understands everything. And that breaks him. He does not stay. He does not try to fix it at that moment. He goes out. Fast. Like someone who can no longer sustain what he feels. And when he is outside, he cries. Not superficially. Not out of discomfort. He cries profoundly. Because not only did he fail, he realized who he really is. And that hurts more than anything else. Meanwhile, inside, the process continues. But it is no longer a trial. It is condemnation. Because the decision was already made. And what follows will only confirm it. After everything that occurred in the religious trial, they lead Jesus before Pilate. Now the scenario changes. It is no longer a group of religious leaders trying to justify a decision. Now it is a Roman authority, a governor, someone used to making difficult decisions, someone who does not move easily by emotions. Pilate does not have the same religious interest. For him, this is not a spiritual matter, it is a political case. Something that could become a problem if it is not handled well. And from the beginning, it is noticed. He observes Jesus with attention. He listens to him. He evaluates. He does not see an armed rebel. He does not see someone trying to take power by force. He does not see someone dangerous in the sense that he normally would be. He sees someone different. Calm. Secure. Without needing to defend himself like the others. And that catches his attention. He asks him direct questions. He tries to understand what is really happening. Are you the king of the Jews? But even the response of Jesus does not fit with what Pilate expected. He does not enter into the political game. He does not respond like someone who seeks power. And there is where Pilate begins to realize something. This is not what they are telling him. This is not a common criminal. And as he observes more, the clearer he sees it. The accusations continue arriving, the leaders insist, pressure, exaggerate, but nothing ends up holding up. And then Pilate says something key. Something that should have changed everything. I find no fault in this man. And there, for a moment, it seems that everything could stop. Because that is the authority speaking. That is the person who has the power to decide. But it does not stop. Because the truth is not the only thing that is at stake. The multitude begins to become noisier. The leaders do not back down. They do not accept that conclusion. On the contrary, they pressure more. They raise the tone. They insist. They push the situation toward a single result. Crucify him. And that changes the environment completely. Because now Pilate is no longer only evaluating a case. He is handling a situation. One that can become dangerous. One that can get out of control. And that weighs. Because although he has authority, he also has something to protect. His position. His stability. His control over the region. And when those things enter into play, the decision is no longer so. Because he does not want to face the cost of doing it. He remembers a custom, releasing a prisoner. And he sees there an opportunity. He presents two men. Jesus, clearly innocent. And Barabbas, guilty, known for violence. The logic would be evident. But this is no longer logic. It is pressure. It is emotion. It is influence. The leaders move the people. They direct the environment. And the multitude responds. Barabbas. And at that moment, the option that Pilate thought would save him, disappears. Because the decision falls back on him. Without escape. Without alternative. And even so, he tries one last thing. He washes his hands. A symbolic gesture. Like saying, it is not my responsibility. But that changes nothing. Because even if he tries to separate himself, the decision continues being his. And at that point, there is no more evasion. Only choosing remains. Between what is correct and what is convenient. And Pilate chooses. Not because he believes it is just. Because he wants to end the conflict. Because he wants to calm the multitude. Because he is not willing to pay the price of sustaining the truth. And then, he delivers Jesus. And at that instant, everything changes. Because there is no longer a trial. There is no longer a debate. Now there is condemnation. And the strongest thing of all is that it was not ignorance. It was not confusion. It was clarity, without action. Pilate knew. He said it. He recognized it. But he did not sustain it. And that is what makes this moment so real. Because it is not always about not knowing what is correct. Sometimes it is about knowing it, and even so not doing it. And that decision not only affected that moment. It changed history. Because from then on, everything advances without stopping. The soldiers receive the order. Jesus ceases to be an accused, and is converted into a condemned one. And the path no longer has a way back. Because what is coming now is not evaluation. It is execution. And nobody is going to stop it. From that moment, everything ceases to be a discussion, and is converted into execution. The soldiers take control. There are no more questions, there are no more attempts to justify anything. Jesus has already been condemned, and now they treat him as such. They surround him, they push him, they lead him without care, as if he no longer had any value. And the mistreatment begins. Not as an impulsive act, but as something almost routine for them. They hit him, they mock him, they play with the situation as if it were entertainment. They place a crown on him, but not of honor, of thorns. They press it on his head, not as a symbol, but as a mockery. They laugh. They call him king. But there is no respect in that. Only contempt. And even so, Jesus does not respond. He does not return insult for insult. He does not try to defend himself. He does not react as anyone would in that moment. He remains. And that disconcerts. Because it is not normal. After that, they place the cross on him. Heavy. Rough. Designed to destroy slowly. And they force him to carry it. Not as a religious symbol, as a physical reality. And the path begins. Step by step, outside of the place of the trial, advancing through streets where the people observe. Some with curiosity, others with contempt, some with sadness, but the majority without completely understanding what is occurring. Because from the outside, this seems like just another execution. But it is not. Jesus advances with difficulty. The body is already weakened by everything that happened before. Every step costs, every movement weighs more than the previous one. And at one point, he falls. Not for lack of will. From physical limit. The weight of the cross, added to the pain, surpasses what his body can sustain in that moment. And then they force another man, Simon, to carry it. Not because he chose it. Because the process cannot be stopped. And the path continues. Finally they arrive at the place. The hill. The final point of that journey. But not the end of the story. There they place him. Not with care. With haste. With harshness. And they nail him. Without softening. Without stopping. The sound of metal against the wood breaks the moment, but nobody intervenes. Nobody stops it. And the cross is raised. Jesus remains suspended. Exposed. Between heaven and earth. And now, everyone can see him. Some continue mocking. Others observe in silence. Some simply pass by, as if it were something else. But in the middle of all that, something unexpected occurs. Jesus speaks. Not to defend himself. Not to condemn. To forgive. Father, forgive them. And that phrase breaks everything. Because it does not fit. Not in that context. Not at that level of pain. But even so, he says it. And the time passes. The pain does not diminish. The body weakens more. Every breath becomes more difficult than the previous one. But his purpose does not change. There is no out-of-control despair. There is no attempt to escape. There is a complete delivery. And the moment arrives. Not announced with noise. But clear. The end. Jesus dies. And in that instant, everything stops. Not only for those who were there. For history. Because something just occurred that is not completely understood at that moment. The sky changes. The earth reacts. But many still do not understand. Because what seems like the end is not. But that is not yet visible. Afterward, the body is lowered. There are no more mockeries. There is no more show. Only silence. And someone appears. Joseph of Arimathea. Not someone from the visible group of disciples. But someone who decides to act. He asks for the body. Not by obligation. By conviction. He takes it with care. He wraps it. And leads it to a prepared place. A tomb. New. Carved in stone. A place where everything seems to stop. They place the body inside. Not with noise. Not with a public ceremony. In silence. And then, the stone. Heavy. Definitive. They make it roll until closing the entrance. If you want to understand the Bible clearly and step by step, I've left a complete guide in the description, including the life and miracles of Jesus, plus a workbook and a guided devotional to help you grow spiritually. And if this content is helping you, don't forget to subscribe. And in that moment, everything remains sealed. The movement stops. The voices disappear. The place remains in calm. And from any human perspective, everything has ended. The betrayal was fulfilled. The arrest occurred. The trial ended. The cross was raised. And now, Only a tomb remains. Closed. Silent. Definitive, in appearance. Because nobody there can see what is coming. Nobody can anticipate what is about to occur. For them, this is the end. But it is not. Because the story that began with a betrayal does not end in a tomb. And what comes after will change everything.